Hello. This week, I'm going to talk about indirect child guidance. So what is indirect child guidance? This is the classroom management strategies that you put together before you ever have a student in your classroom. That is indirect guidance. And we're going to talk about all kinds of different indirect guidance strategies today. Let me share my screen and move on. You have this particular PowerPoint on your announcement page in Blackboard. So what messages do you get when you look at this particular classroom? When I look at this, I think to myself, it's a mess. There doesn't seem to be much of a plan for how children clean up one center before moving on to another center. Maybe they don't know what they're supposed to do. I see numerous centers come on the floor, just done in. Poor planning. That's what this looks like, just poor planning. And when I look at this particular classroom, it looks sterile. There's no creativity going on here. It's just a module that's been left there. And then the message for this classroom, to me, this is an ideal first, second, or third grade classroom, maybe even kindergarten. You have some centers here. You've got numerous centers over there. And in other places, it looks like things are labeled. Giving children an opportunity to know where to put things back when they're done using them. Individual tables are set up. Looks organized. It's the message. Indirect guidance is your behind the scenes work. It's the work that you do in June, July, and August before the children come back to school. You're going to manage the environment because you're the manager. You're going to design the way you want your classroom to look. You're going to design as much of the schedule as you can. And I say as you can. For those of us who are in a public school, first, second, or third grade, and probably even kindergarten, you're going to get your schedule the first week of school before the kids get back. And it'll tell you, this is when you're going to lunch. This is when you have your specials. In my particular school, when I taught first grade, they would tell us, this is when your afternoon recess is going to take place. This is when your lunch recess is going to end before the next group comes out. In fact, in our building, we had one set of restrooms for girls and one for boys. There were 400 on a wing, and we even had our bathroom times scheduled. So some of the scheduling is out of your control. But what you do with the blocks that are in your classroom, the blocks of time, that is what you're going to work on managing. Consistency in scheduling is very important, and we'll get to that later. Developmentally appropriate materials, very important. Obviously, children are going to be terribly frustrated if the materials are up here, way over their comprehension, or down here, and it's too babyish, and it's not a challenge. And then procedures. Setting up procedures is very important for your indirect guidance structure. Okay. First things first, you begin by designing your door. I know it sounds like it's just such a small thing, but it's huge. Designing a friendly door so that when children arrive at your door every morning is important because it lets them know that you value them. You're happy that they are there. When children do artwork, make sure you have a display place already designated. You can label it and say Artist's Corner or however you want to label it, but make sure it's where children can see it at their eye level. A lot of times people put art up here way on top along the wall. Well, you know, if you're a kindergartner, first grader, or a 4-year-old, they're never going to really get to see that. Way out of their eye zone. And the other thing about artwork, don't fall into the trap of just hanging up the best pieces. Sometimes I see people do that because they wanted their room to look so nice. Well, you know what? It's devastating to a child to know that their work's the only one that's been eliminated from the wall of art because they weren't good enough. That is just so sad to see that happen. And it happens. When you design your classroom, design it with the important events in mind. What's more important to a kindergartner or a first and second grader than losing their tooth? Trust me, it's huge. I had Mr. Big Tooth on my wall. I had a laminated, great big, huge tooth that I drew. And then I got myself a notepad of just little, like this big, of little teeth, and had each one. I just went to the school workroom and laminated myself about 50 notes. And then I kept those in a little baggie. And in the morning when Junior would come in and say, Missy, I lost a tooth. I go, okay, show me where it's missing. And then they got to share about what happened with their tooth. And remember, these are still big believers in the tooth fairy. Let them tell you all about it. And then you go ahead and get them one of the laminated teeth and a marker and have them write their name and have them put the date. And you may have to help them with that, and that's totally okay. Piece of Scotch tape, and they get to hang it up on Big Tooth. So what we always call them was Big Tooth. And then by the end of the school year, everyone gets to take down, last week of school, everyone got to take down their teeth from Big Tooth. And then we would lay them out. Who had the most, who had the least, who had the same, and they got to take them home. It was so much fun. It's a great math activity, and it acknowledges the important events in a child's life. Part of classroom management. Birthdays, same thing. Very important in a child's life is their birthday. I would make sure that during the first week of school that I found out when every child's birthday was, and I would just write it. I had a big poster similar to the one that you see here on the PowerPoint, and it was laminated. I used it every year, so I could just write on it in vis-a-vis and put the name and the birthday in the correct cupcake. And yes, you may on occasion have a child that does not celebrate their birthday, such as a child that's a Jehovah's Witness. So just make sure you don't put theirs up there. I would have, a special procedure, and it was very little, but when I had a birthday, and the child celebrated their birthday, we would make sure during whole group time to sing them happy birthday, and they got to pick out a special pencil from my special pencil box. And then I had these big birthday stickers that they had a birthday sticker that they got and put on their clothes. That's it, just an acknowledgement of this important happy day. Now, for the children that were not allowed to celebrate birthdays, we didn't leave them out. At the end of the school year, last week of school in May, we would celebrate all the summer birthdays on one day. They'd all get to have their happy birthday sign, pick their birthday pencil, and get a sticker. Okay, got that done. Not the same day, different day. I would acknowledge children that did not get to celebrate birthdays, and we just call it a special person day. And they would get a generic sticker to wear and a generic pencil that didn't say happy birthday. All good. That way everyone feels like they had some special attention. Part of classroom management. Part of classroom design is making sure you give everybody just a little corner that's theirs. Whether it's a locker, if you have lockers, fine. We had lockers when I was teaching for my first grade class. But I didn't always have lockers. When I taught 4-year-olds, we had cubbies. When I taught kindergarten, we had cubbies as well. You need to make sure that you have, go to dollar store, get a basket for each cubby, take their picture, first day of class, so easy with your phone, and then you can just send it to yourself and run it off on your printer. Cut it out and then have their picture on their basket. That way, if they can't read their name yet, it's fine. They'll recognize their face. And that way they'll know part of your classroom management. This is where I put my backpack. This is where I put in the basket anything that needs to go home the next day. Completed work can go in the basket. This is part of management, being organized. Make sure if you're teaching kindergarten, first, second, and third grade, you need to have a place for them to sit. I mean, I think everybody needs a spot. You notice I have nameplates on those tables. Those nameplates are not engraved in stone, and I reserve the right to move them around if I notice some children maybe not working well with the particular group they're in. Maybe they need to be with a different group. That's okay too. I would allow them to select the first day. There'd be no names, just nameplates, empty ones. And I would see how it panned out. If I liked the self-selection, I went with that. If I didn't like it, I would reserve the right to change them around. Always label the lockers. I wouldn't label them ahead of time. I'd have the nameplates on there, but I'd wait until the kids get there. Because, the problem with that is, I don't know about your building, but in my building, I would get a list about 2 days before the first day of school while I was in there setting up. And invariably, probably 2/3 of the ones on the list showed up. But the other third didn't show up, and instead a whole new group would be there. So I didn't want to write names on the lockers unless the kids were there. So I'd wait until the first day. And I'd give them something to do, and then I'd call them out one at a time. And we'd go, here's your locker, let's write your name on it. And I'd show them how it opens, and then how, how it closes, and so on and so forth. And that was that. Everyone should have an opportunity to be a helper. I don't care how you set it up, but, helper charts are really important. And I would have students' names on popsicle sticks and just move them along, just put them in the envelopes there, and it was a rotation system, so super easy. Private spaces. Well, you always hear about these wonderful private corners for children to sit in and read and maybe get away for things for a bit if they need a little calm down. I get all that, and I think that's all really nice. However, you need to make sure you can see children at all times, because you're responsible for whatever they're doing, and you need to see them. So if you want to set up a little private corner that looks private but has netting so you can see through it, I think that's ideal. So when we talk about how to actually put your furniture, what's wrong with this? I mean, when you look at this, everything looks nice and neat, and it's all put around the perimeter. But here's the problem. You're going to be hoarse from saying the same sentence over and over. Use your walking feet, no running, use your walking feet. You're going to be saying that all day if you're in this particular classroom. Because what this teacher's done is they've done a great job setting up centers around the perimeter. The problem is there's a running zone straight up the middle. This is good. This is, more of a challenge than most 4-year-olds can withstand. They're going to run from one end to the other all day long. What you need to do is set up roadblocks so children cannot have a running zone down the middle. Just have things all around the middle, not just the perimeter. And you will save yourself that particular line. Use your walking feet, because they have to walk to get around all the furniture. That's why you're going to set up a classroom. That's your assignment for this week. Planning for centers. Again, you're going to have to plan. This is all part, indirect guidance is the plan. No kids in the classroom, it's just the plan. how do you want to set it up? There are a million ways to set up your centers. I mean, totally. I get that. So pick one way that you're going to do it. Have either your red group, orange group, green group, blue group, and then they go rotate, have names on popsicle sticks, or however you want to do it. I'll tell you how we did it in my first grade classroom, and first grade obviously is different from being in a pre-K. But in first grade, we had literacy centers and math centers. So there were 3 centers, and I was center number 4. At my center, center 4 is where I did reading instruction, small group reading instruction. Because I don't know about your classroom, but in my classroom, I had children that came from all different ends of the spectrum. I would have children that came into my first grade classroom on day 1 carrying a chapter book and ask me, you think I can read chapter 6 today if we have some free time? I can't wait to get to that chapter. It's like, you betcha. Okay. And then I had other children who could not read or write their name or tell me what the letters of the alphabet were. That's the other end of the spectrum, and that's totally fine. Your job is to find a way to teach all ends of that learning spectrum and bring them forward. Okay. So why am I telling you that now? Because it has to do with centers. For my morning centers, where they did the bulk of their work, I would have my students in groups by their reading ability. I would have all the chapter readers, 3 or 4 of them in one group. And then I would have all the children that were having trouble recognizing the letters of the alphabet and telling me the letter sounds in another group. And then I would have 2 middles. And the 2 middles were very easy because I could just use my reader and my story of the week, and they would just progress through during our reading time. I'd make sure I had 2 groups, so I'd only have 4 or 5 in each group. The high group, I would have to challenge them. Yes, I would have them read the story of the week because they were required to take the quiz at the end of the week. But I would have them individually working on a chapter in their chapter books. And then we would do an extension activity with that to bring them forward. I wanted them to become better, more fluent readers. And then I'd have my last group, and that group was the group that was working on letter identification and letter sounds, and eventually putting together sight words and so on and so forth. And we would work on that in a small group. And when I first started teaching, I had been taught that you mixed up your groups, that was the best way, because the highs would teach the lows and the lows would learn from the highs and so on and so forth. Within my first week of working, I realized that was not working for me. So I'm telling you what worked for me. Anyway, okay. So as you plan your centers, make it work for you. If you're teaching reading and you work in 1st, 2nd, or 3rd grade, level them out. If you're teaching pre-K or kindergarten, you might be able to let them self-select groups. But like I said, if you're teaching reading, that doesn't work well. Okay, let me just have some coffee here. Throat's getting dry. You've got to organize your centers as part of classroom management. On first day of school, when you have those centers all ready and beautiful, put a sheet over them. Do not open them up, because you have not taught the center. You need to teach children what each center is, what you can do with each center, and how to clean up each center. Because no 4-year-old or 5 or 6-year-old knows what you expect them to do in a center. They don't have a clue. Weren't born knowing that. And that's normal. That's good. You'd get to teach it. So on day 1, when they first come in and you're in a 4 or 5-year-old classroom, have some table centers and baskets that you can put on each table, puzzles and so on and so forth, some blocks, and do that during center time. Do not open up every center on day one and say, have at it, because you are asking for pandemonium and a room that looks like the first picture we looked at. Day one, you open up one center and go, boys and girls, this is my block center. This is how it's set up. And I'm going to take some things out and I'm going to build with this. This is how we treat each other in the block center. We do not throw things in the block center. We are kind. We share. When it's time to clean up, this is how we clean up the block center. That's that. Next day, you will teach and ask 1 or 2 students to come and pretend work in the block center and then clean up. So you've taught that center. They know what it is. They know what you can do with the center, and they know what your expectation for cleanup is. Day one, that's it. You're done with that center. Day 2, unveil another center. Unveil the housekeeping center. If you teach pre-K, show them what you can do in there. Show them how it's cleaned up. Children deserve to be taught what it is you expect. That's indirect classroom management, but you need to plan this out to a T ahead of time. This does not happen by accident. Limiting numbers in centers, very important. You don't want 10 kids in a center. That's just pandemonium. So whatever number you decide on, you can have a sticker system, or where you have a set number of children that you group to go to that center. It doesn't matter how you do it. Just decide on a number and then stick with your system. Center rotation. My centers in my first grade class rotated because I wanted them to go to the math center, and I wanted them to go to the writing center and the literacy center, and then my center for teaching reading. So we rotated every 20 minutes. I would have a little bell, and the bell would chime, and then it was time for them to put up whatever work they had completed. They had an assignment in each center on their table, and we would check it later as a whole group check and clean up what they did, and then move to the next center. And it worked like clockwork because they were used to that rotation. And then quiet versus loud centers. If you teach pre-K in kindergarten, you've got a block center going, you've got probably a kitchen or some other center, dramatic play center where they're working. Make sure that you have the loud centers such as blocks and dramatic play far away from the writing center and the reading center and the math center, where children are apt to be a little bit more focused and concentrating. So what if they choose the same center over and over? You know, if you're doing pre-K or kindergarten, you're going to have some open choices, because you've got, you're probably not going to assign them in pre-K. Well, what if they always go to blocks, and you're thinking, so gosh, I really think Jason needs to maybe go to do some art, or maybe go to the reading center, Well, there's some things you can start doing. I highly recommend having maybe Wednesday be the assigned center day. That's just your rotate. Every Wednesday, it's a teacher's choice. If it's a routine, it's okay. Kids accept that. Or you might close a popular center now and then. Sorry, the block center is under construction today, so I have a sheet over it. You'll have to go elsewhere. Or if you put yourself in one of the less popular centers, say you really want people to be in that science center examining whatever you have in there. In order to stir some interest, if you take a seat in there and start working, trust me, you'll have a crowd in there before you know it. Or you might have a special activity in a less popular center. If you want someone to be in the science center, just put a big hairy spider in a container that can't be opened by children in that center, and see how interesting that center is all of a sudden. Just some ideas. Okay, the writing center. You'll want to make your writing center fun. You know, a lot of times it's just worksheets, and that's not interesting or fun. The writing center should have an ABC chart. It should have the names of the children somewhere in that center. I usually had them in the I had them laminated in a little box so that they could just with the picture of the child next to it. So if they wanted to write a letter to their friend, they could do that. They could find their friend's picture, had their friend's name written there, and then they could write the rest of their letter. Alphabet strips are important. It says your old card fronts, you know, when I got Christmas cards or birthday cards or any kind of cards, I would just tear the front cover off and put it in a bag. And over the years, I had a lot of front covers. And I've just put those front covers in a box in my writing center. And you'd be surprised how many of them turned into postcards, because, you know, the other side is generally blank. So they could be used as postcards. Sometimes they would cut out the picture of the front and then use it and glue it on something else. Again, it's just an idea, and have lots of different pencils in there and some scissors and glue so that they can decorate whatever they're working on. The reading center. Okay, the reading center is really important, and I love walking into a classroom where the reading center is used. You can see it's used. There are kids sitting in there looking at books or reading books. Make sure you display them. I'll be honest with you, I would have given anything to have a display like that when I was working in the classroom, and I couldn't afford it. What I did have, I had a low boy shelf, and I had baskets, that dollar store baskets again. I had about 20 baskets, and each basket just had books in it. But then I had a closet, and my closet had Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So for the first 9 weeks, that stuff was out first. I'd have books in baskets. And I had books in all different levels. I had some chapter books. I had some books that were picture books, no words. I had ABC books, and I had a lot of books that were right down the middle, reading level. You want them at all ends of the reading level, because you're going to have children, again, that don't know the alphabet, and then chapter book readers. And also have books that are fiction and nonfiction, because little boys like nonfiction. They like books about bugs and trucks and worms and scary looking animals. Little girls don't. Little girls like fiction. So make sure you address both groups of interest. Read some of the books from your bookshelves so that they become interested in what you've got. And the worst thing is, don't let the books get stale. Rotate them. After the first 9 weeks, pick them up. Those go on the shelf. They're under Q1, and by golly, Q2's books are now in the rack. And when they come in on Monday morning after you've done that, they're like, oh, the library is new. And they're just so amazed. And you've managed to stir up interest again in the library. So make sure you rotate your books. This does not cost a fortune, trust me, because I went to a ton of teacher retirement sales. This is a great time of the year, because by May, you're going to have a whole bunch of teachers retiring. All you have to do is scan online, see where the teacher retirement sales are, and be there first. My goodness, I was there early to get in there, because you can get books for $0.25 a piece and stock up your library. Math center. Part of your management's having a good math center. And look at this. Again, the dollar store is your friend here. Find some containers like this. You don't need lids. They just get lost. But put a picture of what goes in each tub, because that way, when you say, boys and girls, time to clean up, Well, they know what you expect them to do. First thing is you already showed them how to clean up because that's how you taught that center. But you also have pictures to help them as a reminder. Puzzles, if you have puzzles, that's great, but mark the back of each puzzle piece from one puzzle with the same letter. If you just put A on every piece, so when they're putting them together, they know exactly where it goes. And file folder games, all good. Art center, try to get your art center near water so they can go wash up. I know that's a little hard sometimes. And the same thing with no carpeting. Some rooms, I don't know why they insist on putting carpeting in pre-K and kindergarten rooms. It's ridiculous. You know, those plain shower curtains, the liners, you can get them at Walmart for like $1.99. Get yourself some liners, and then under your easel, have one of those liners. And you can at least prevent some of the marking that's going to be on the ground. A drying rack, you know, those drying racks that you always find in like Walmart or Target, kit for people to take to college. They've got the different slots in them. Well, those are great for drying artwork too, because they can just hang them across each one of those slots. So, and they're real cheap. Smocks, smocks are great. I never had the money to buy official smocks. What I would do is I would get old shirts that my husband was ready to Goodwill and just tear out the sleeves and attach some ribbon to the end so you could tie them in the back. So they just wore them backwards. And, you know, he's a big, tall guy. So on the 4-year-olds, it went all the way down to their ankles. And like I said, without the arms in them, it was perfect. They were great smocks. That way you can take them home once a week and get them clean. Yeah, and make sure you display so everyone's is out there. Block center, more management. Okay, away from the door because you don't want people tripping over it all the time. Label your shelves. This is contact paper. All you have to do is take one of these blocks, lay it on the contact paper, draw the outline, cut it out, and then tape it, and then, you know, stick it down on your shelf. This lets the child know this is the shelf to put this block on. And it's not all thrown in there, you know, willy-nilly. It looks nice and neat. Structure height. If you have some great big builders in your classroom, you might want to tell them nothing taller than your chin, so it doesn't fall over and hit someone in the head or something like that. And photos, you know, it's so easy to come by and take a picture and, you know, maybe send it home so that the child's family can see what wonderful structures the child has put together. This is part of indirect classroom management. It shows children that you really appreciate their work. Dramatic play. You know, most classrooms have a wonderful kitchen. But you know, how much time does anyone really spend in the kitchen? You want to really always be in the kitchen? To me, it's so boring. Have props that go with the theme. You know, if you have apples this week, why not have an apple stand? Have those little plastic apples, and then have a little cash register where they're selling apples, and have pads of paper that or maybe play money where they're making change for the apples. You see where I'm going. This can extend so much of what's going on. If you do need the baby center, have dolls and props that from a variety of cultures, where, you know, babies that are different, you know, ethnicities, boys and girl dolls, because, you know, boys like to play with dolls too. They like to see themselves represented. Props that develop literacy, you know, you can have books, magazines, newspapers, catalogs, paper, pencil. Extend the learning, bring some literacy into dramatic play. And here we go, the classroom schedule. You know, the classroom schedule is so important because it gives children a sense of security to know what's coming next. So think about this. A lot of classrooms I go to, I see the schedule on a plain old piece of paper, printed off the computer with their schedules right there in front of the door for everyone to see. Very nice, very nice. Completely useless, okay? Totally useless as a classroom management tool, because your 4-year-olds can't see that high. They're down here and they can't read it, okay? Can't read. Just think how you would feel if you were in my classroom right now. You couldn't read. You see this round thing with some squiggles on it that people call numbers on the wall, but you don't know what it stands for because you can't tell time. But oh my gosh, you're so hungry. You just want to know, when do I get to eat lunch? How frustrating is it? You don't know. You don't know when you might have a bathroom break. You don't know when you're going home. You don't know when you go to recess. You just don't know anything. You're just in a fog. You think that contributes to good behavior? No. Good managers let children know what's happening next. They have a classroom schedule that is predictable. First of all, it needs to be clearly visible. This is a classroom schedule on a big pocket chart, and this is what I used. Obviously, this one here is first grade. You start out by being clearly visible. You include pictures, because you're going to have children that cannot read. You need pictures. That way they know what morning work looks like and calendar time, because you're going to make sure on day one that you explain each one of those pictures. You have separate cards from these activities so that you can pull these cards out and use. These are all laminated, and you're going to be able to wipe off the time, because next year they might assign you to the library at 12:30. Who knows? Wipe it off, redo the where the card goes. If you teach pre-K, make sure you include a nap time, because it's required. They've got to be laminated. If you don't laminate your stuff, it's useless. It'll never last. And it should read from top to bottom, just like we read a page. You are practicing literacy. And then you need something like I had a red clothespin with a star on it. And the timekeeper would start off at the top. It was the timekeeper's job to keep us on track as far as moving these as the day went on. And so this is an easy way for children who cannot read, but who know if they are at their reading time, they know it's not long until I get to eat lunch. So this gives children a sense of security, because they can predict what's coming next. Secure children are much less apt to act out. So you are also going to be fixing your own classroom schedule, and we'll talk about this later. That's one of the assignments that I'm going to talk about when I'm done here. And that's what's coming up next. So let me switch places here. I'm going to stop this share and go to our Blackboard page. No, that's not what happened. Okay, there we go. There we go. Okay. So this week, you're going to read Marion chapter 4, and here is the PowerPoint that I just went through, and you're going to create your classroom floor plan. So your classroom floor plan needs to be hand drawn. I know they've got some beautiful ones online and things like that. Don't want to see them. I want to see it hand drawn, and I can tell a hand drawn floor plan. So you can just draw it, scan it, and then upload it to Blackboard. It needs to have, this is going to be for a pre-K classroom. And it's going to be 4 centers, at least 4 centers. You can have more centers, okay? A large group area, tables for children to work at, a sink, bathroom, door, windows. Feel free to include additional details. Be sure to label each center area for clarification, and when complete, scan or take a picture of your floor plan. Computer-generated floor plans are not acceptable. Okay. And then I'm going to talk about the time schedule, which is this assignment right here. And I did show you my time schedule there. So you're going to come up with your own. And pre-K, kindergarten, or first grade, whichever one you want to do, whichever one works for you. And if, trust me, if you work second grade, I'm fine with that too. You're going to let me know what age or grade it is. It's going to be easy to read print and laminated times and pictures. Times should be able to be changed, and activities should be able to be edited. Pictures, you're going to create a video where you show the time schedule that you have created, and you're going to tell me, make sure you tell me if you've laminated it, and you're going to upload just the video to assignments in Blackboard. And that's coming up. That's not right this week. The classroom floor plan is due, but the time schedule is due in a couple weeks. But just wanted to talk about it while we were talking about time schedules this morning. All righty. I hope you have a wonderful week. If you have any questions about anything I talked about, please let me know. But please know that indirect guidance is what you do before the kids get there. That's your planning to be a good classroom manager. Have a great week. Bye-bye.